social distancing. At the Chamber, my name is Garrick Taylor. It is a Wednesday night edition. As always, we're joined by the CEO of the Arizona Chamber, Glenn Hammer, for Happy Hour with Hammer. Glenn, good to have you back.
Good to be back on the show.
All right, today a new opinion column from the desk of Glenn Hammer, but you wrote this one jointly with your counterpart at the U.S. Chamber, U.S. Chamber President Suzanne Clark. Glenn, you both argue that Proposition 208, that's the big income tax measure on the Arizona ballot this November, you argue that it might be the most damaging ballot question on the ballot in any state this election cycle, and you said it puts the Arizona small business recovery at tremendous risk. Tell us about what compelled you and Suzanne Clark to issue this column.
Well, it certainly is the worst ballot proposition that I can think of from an economic standpoint that's ever been on the Arizona ballot. Now, what's extraordinary and appreciated is that the president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Suzanne Clark, would say that it may be the worst ballot initiative on the boards for the entire country this election cycle. That's a pretty extraordinary statement.
Yeah, highly unusual. The U.S. Chamber, just prior to the issuing of this column, announced that the U.S. Chamber, this national group, the biggest and most respected advocate for business in the U.S., has taken an opposition position against a ballot measure in Arizona. So it's highly unusual. But tell us, why would a national business group come out so strongly against this?
You know, we need to keep in mind at this point, Arizona is no longer a small state. We have more people than Massachusetts. We're the 14th largest state. We're both doing this Zoom call from the fastest growing county in the United States of America for 3 years or so running. We have a GDP now about the size of Israel's. So the Arizona economy is becoming more and more important in terms of having a strong national economy. And this proposal would be almost a doubling of our income tax. And Garrick, as we both know, that's the way a lot of our small businesses in Arizona pay taxes, is through the individual income tax part of the tax code. And the U.S. Chamber recognizes that this 77.7% increase, to be precise, shock to the system would be really bad for businesses. And they represent 3 million businesses all across America, and they represent a lot of businesses in Arizona. So I just have a tremendous amount of appreciation for them coming out and saying, this really is bad, and sort of stops the music in terms of Arizona being considered, if it were to pass, a pro-job state. So, I would argue this is great that they came out, but now there's even more of a spotlight in Arizona that, God forbid, this thing passes. There would be national reasons for companies to look at other states. I mean, we just don't want that to happen.
Glenn, just a couple of points on this. You and Suzanne Clark argue today that what the U.S. is experiencing right now is a sort of bifurcated recovery, that there are some that are on the path to recovery, and there are others for whom the situation is just getting worse. And you argue today that Proposition 208 could make things much worse, especially in certain industries.
Yeah, that's right. As a kid growing up, my favorite picture was Dr. K. And we're living in a case-shaped recovery right now. There are some areas, particularly more on the tech side, that are doing well, and that's great. But there are other areas, big components of Arizona's economy, hospitality, restaurants, small retail, that are really struggling. And again, when we look at this tax, and this was clearly intended as a soak the rich type tax. But the facts really say otherwise. The fact that over 50% of the filers that are hit by this are small businesses, and that of our private sector employee base in Arizona, over 50% of these individuals, Garrick, work for these small businesses. So flip a coin. If you're in the private sector, there's a better chance than not that you're working for a company that could be negatively hit by this almost doubling of our income tax scheme that that Portland, Oregon outfit financed and put it on the ballot.
Glenn, last night you were on Channel 3 talking about Congress's failure to pass another relief package. And in the story that you were in, they profiled a business owner in Mojave County who makes restaurant equipment. He has these special pizza ovens. They're ready for delivery, but it's his customers that are in bad shape and can't buy his equipment. I don't think life gets better for that small business if Proposition 208 passes. I was really struck by the person who was profiled in that story.
It doesn't, Garrick, and not every year is the same in terms of the profits that a business could earn. I mean, if you're a small business, you're holding on. There's a lot of businesses that are just holding on for dear life. Now, we had the strongest economy in our state's history before the pandemic. There's good reason to believe if we don't do something harmful, such as passing Proposition 208,
right,
that next year could be a boom year. But for a lot of these companies and individuals, those resources, if it is a boom year, are going to hopefully help make up for what this year, at least through the first half, has been very, very tough.
Right, right. Well, you were on the news last night, but there were some other news last night. The two nominees from their respective parties for the U.S. Senate in Arizona squared off in a debate. Glenn, something that passed way back in December of 17 was a talking point in this debate, and that's the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It included a corporate income tax rate reduction in that package, but a lot of other pro-growth reforms were built into that package. I thought that this was a settled question. I guess it's not. This is still this bill is still very much under attack, at least by one of the candidates.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that that Captain Kelly referred to it on several occasions and really referred to it in a very derogatory type way. And this is the tax cut that put our corporate income tax more in line with other industrialized nations. We have to remember, before that tax cut bill passed, there was story after story in mainstream media, whether it's the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, of companies incorporating
Right,
outside of the United States or doing I can't remember return. What was it? Was it an inversion?
Inversions.
Okay, yeah, it was a real problem, and the Obama administration was trying to figure out how to stop that. Well, I'm going to give the Trump administration and the Republicans in Congress a lot of credit. They figured it out. What they did is they took our tax rate, which on April 1st of a certain year was not an April Fool's joke, it was real, became the highest in the world. It surpassed Japan.
Right.
And they put it right sort of in the middle of the pack. We're still not nearly the most competitive. We're not nearly where Ireland is, but we're competitive. And with our rule of law and the other advantages that the United States had,
Sure,
it lit this economy on fire. And the other thing that Captain Kelly failed to perhaps remember is that this isn't just corporations that benefited from the law. It was small businesses. There was, in fact, it was Senator Ron Johnson, a great senator from Wisconsin, who basically said, we're not passing this until we make sure that we get a provision in that also makes sure that the tax treatment for small businesses is equitable.
Right.
So just bring it back to the Prop 208 situation. I guarantee if you had Senator Johnson in here in the state, he'd be looking at this and saying, hold on, you're going to keep the tax for, say, Apple, which is a great company. I'm on an iPad right now,
sure,
at 4.9%, but you're going to take the tax for the entrepreneurial section of your economy and you're going to jack that up by 78% to 8%.
To 8.
No way. To 8 and take it from a point where it was one of the most competitive in the country to the 9th highest. It's just not good policy.
Glenn, I have to note. Well, I have to note, Glenn, that I'm a longtime Hammer Time bottom line reader, and you've written multiple columns over the years where you linked to these lists of highest corporate tax rates worldwide, and you would point out that the U.S. was at the top of these lists, and this was a list that we didn't want to be on. And now you're saying that if Prop 208 were to pass, we'd be on the equivalent on a state income tax rate. We'd be in a top 10 of highest state income tax rates. Boy, a wise man recently used the phrase that we're about to stub our toe with our eyes wide open.
Garrick, and we would be taking something that has been a draw for this state. This state, through competitive taxation, has been able to fund sustainably over $1 billion a year in K through 12 funding. We're talking 20% teacher pay raise. We're talking additional assistance. We're talking great new programs like results-based funding. We've been able to put more money into our universities, more money into our community colleges, right, all the while socking away $1 billion in our rainy day fund. It's working. Why we would stop that? I really believe that there's a lot of people who certainly care deeply about our K through 12 system, that if this were to pass in a few years would be like, hold on, what happened? Why didn't this turn out the way it was advertised? Yeah. Because what will happen is that we are in 50 states. There is a competition for jobs, and it would take this great growth record that has benefited all of us and just stop that cold. So we have to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Glenn, your take on last night's some more of the talking points. I know that you've got a lot of you've got some tough skin around this, but just some of the rhetoric around job creators and corporations. Just thoughts on that.
I don't like the name calling. So I'm just gonna say that we need more civility. So when you hear these terms that PACs are bad, well, who works for companies? Is it robots? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's human beings. So, and they're doing important work. And when you talk about healthcare or pharmaceutical, well, I'm just going to tell you, we're not in the Hammer household going to make something that's going to solve the coronavirus. But I guarantee one of our great American pharmaceutical companies will. And I guarantee a lot of the people that are playing the political games are going to put a shot at.
Don't sell your daughter short. There's a chance they could come up with something.
It's true. Well, it's not me. And I just think I don't like the name calling. I think on substance, Senator McSally has a great record. It's why we endorsed her. It's why the U.S. Chamber endorsed her. The drought contingency plan, USMCA, these are things incredibly important to the state of Arizona. We'll see. We'll know soon enough. But it was the 90 minutes did go pretty quick. What was your take?
I tuned in up until the break. I commented to a family member I was watching it with, which is somebody with the resumes of these two individuals. They're outstanding Americans. I don't care what their party affiliation is, and we should encourage folks like this to get into public service. They've already done a tremendous amount for this country. These are just policy differences. They just disagree. It's just a difference of opinion, a difference in philosophy about the direction of the country. And look, politics ain't beanbag. We're used to some sharp elbows, but some of the stuff, it's unnecessary.
It's unnecessary, and we need to restore civility. I think way back when to 2014, when Governor Ducey.
Boy, old man Hammer here. Go back to 2014.
Go back to 2014 and think about the governor's race. Think about it between Governor Ducey and Fred Duvall, both honorable men. They ran. It was college hockey. There were some good hits on both sides. Sure. But they ran on the issues. It was a race where there was a real discussion, and now you were at the point where after the fact they've worked together on things like Proposition 1, 2, 3, or on Fred Duvall's Teacher Academy,
Sure,
higher ed. Yeah. That's the way it should be. And you're right. Both Senator McSally and Captain Kelly. I admire their service to the United States of America. I'm a civilian. I admire it. Yeah. Do I think that Martha McSally would be better for the state and the country given our challenges? I certainly do. But, I take a look at the people that I was fortunate enough to work for, Senator Kyle, Congressman Salmon. These are gentlemen. They weren't afraid of getting into and having a vigorous debate. But, I do think we're at the strongest for our society when we can be civil. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to mark, there were things where I was just screaming serenity now when both sides were talking. Now, when we got into the debate part of it, I thought that there was a lot of good exchanges. I do, and I actually want to say, I think the moderators did a lot better job than Chris Wallace.
Wow. It was sort of a public broadcasting Arizona all-star team when you've got Steve Goldstein, Lorraine Rivera, and Ted Simons. I mean, you've
Yvonne.
You've worked with all three of them.
Yvonne wins.
And Yvonne, she's not on the public side, but Yvonne is a great reporter. But
yeah,
I mean, the four of them, I know. Hey, look, we know in your house
they did a great job. We could quibble over a few things. There was a lot of substance there. So what I'm saying is, if you could edit out some of that other stuff, I think you had a good debate on the business side. Senator McSally is clearly superior. I mean, Captain Kelly certainly wasn't flirting. He said he supports a public option, which could lead to single payer. It's not as bad as Medicare for all. I'll give you that, but there's a lot of dangers that would pose. So there was a lot of substance there in the 90 minutes, and soon enough, Arizona voters will decide who's going to be in the John McCain seat for at least another 2 years.
At least for 2 years. Glenn, is it true that one of Steve Goldstein's biggest fans lives under your roof?
My wife, Tali, it's when I'm on the show with Steve Goldstein, it's like I've actually done something with my life. That's how I would put it. She's Steve's #1 fan.
Yeah, we all love Steve Goldstein. All right. Thanks, Glenn. Another good day, and we'll get back at it next episode. Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks, Garrick.